The Bible is the word of the Creator to God's people. The Bible was given directly to God's people. The Bible is filled with instructions, commandments, laws and principles, and examples for the body of Christ to live by. So the Bible is the word of the Creator to a specific set of people, and that's God's people. The Bible, the word of the Creator to his people, is filled also with warnings, different kind of warnings for believers. It's filled with warning of things that are to come, things that are happening or that were happening among the brethren. Warnings came of things that were not to be named among believers. In essence, what I'm saying today to every single believer out there, every single man and woman that is seeking to be a believer, the word of the Creator is for God's people, and it was given filled with instructions, principles, laws, but it also gave warning about things that were to come and about what was happening in the midst of the church or in the body of Christ. So the word of the Creator is for believers. Now, when you study the Bible, you realize that there were many letters written to different churches. When you look through scriptures, you realize that there were letters that were written by the apostles addressing different issues that were taking place in the body of Christ or were taking place in the churches in primitive days back then. Now, some of the issues stem from corruption within the church, doctrines, disunity, teaching for monetary gain. I want you to understand that these were things that were happening in the body of Christ. And the apostles wrote letters to different churches addressing the issues that were taking place in those days. Today, in our generation, in our time, there are issues that are happening in the body of Christ today among us in different churches. Issues are taking place. So the same way how things were happening back then, and as I use the word primitive, back in the days, in Bible days, there are things that are happening today in our generation that we need to pay attention to. There are things that are happening in the churches that needs to be addressed, like what things were addressed back in the days by the apostles. Many things are happening today in the body of Christ. But blindness and the gullibility of the church, or the church being gullible, is the hallmark of the churches today. And I want to say that again. Blindness and being gullible is the hallmark of churches today. The church today is sleeping. The church today is blind. The church today cannot see. And as a result of that, it has become gullible. And any man and any woman can enter the church today pretending to be a believer and deceive the church, enter the church with corruption, like what was taking place back then. Enter the church pretending to be a believer, preaching and teaching for monetary gain, like what was taking place back then. And often I come and I use this platform and I tell you, there's nothing new under the sun. What was happening in Bible days is happening today in our time and in our generation. And as often as I get the opportunity, I like to come and tell you that we have to focus on our time. We have to focus on our generation. We have to focus on what is happening today. Because we are going to be judged of the things that we do today, not of what took place in the Bible. The Bible is the word of the Creator to us with instructions and commandments and examples for us to live by. So we use the Bible, we use the word of the Creator to match up to what is taking place in our time. I want you to understand today, and I'm giving a warning to every believer, to every church that is out there today. I am giving a warning as I sit before you today. I am giving a warning through the Spirit, telling you that there are things happening in the church today, and because of the blindness and the church being gullible, it has taken over the church without the churches being aware of it. Today, because of how blind and gullible the church is, there are some crafty men and women, very cunning, under demonic influence, have entered the church pretending to be saved, but truly they are not saved. And these men and even women are what you call scammers. And somehow the term for scammers have been upgraded to choppers. So you might hear the word choppers out there. So these men and women have entered the church pretending, and I want you to hear me, pretending to be believers. Pretending to be saved. Pretending and acting like they are truly saved and called by the Creator. And I want you to hear me today. Because the church is blind, and because the church is gullible, the church has received these men with open arms, not understanding that they have entered the church pretending to be saved when genuinely they are not saved. They are using the church as cover. They act like believers. They walk like believers. They talk like believers. They shout like believers. They sing like believers. They preach like believers. But in fact, they are the opposite of what they are pretending to be. I want you to understand that because of the seriousness of these scammers, they reach the point where they get baptized and they behave like they are truly saved. But I want you to understand that they enter the church with ulterior motives. They enter the church pretending like believers, acting and behaving like believers, but in fact, they are not believers. What is the motive of these men? Why did they enter the church pretending to be believers? The motive is to trick the government system. Because the church is a non-profit organization, the government is not going to clamp down or check about money within the church or the organization. These men are using the church as cover. You know why? Because nothing not happening in the world of scamming anymore. scamming not working out like how it was working out in the past. So it's a new style. It's a new class of scamming taking place. They realize that there's a loophole within the church. They realize that the church is gullible. They realize that the church is blind, and they can enter and pretend to be believers and trick the church and also trick the government system. I want you to understand that these men have some key position in some churches and some organizations right now as we speak. Right now as I sit before you, there are some scammers in some key position in some churches, in some big organizations right now as I sit before you speaking. Open your eyes, church. Open your eyes and understand that the crafty, cunning, wicked devil is at work. He is at work because his role is to deceive the brethren. And he has influenced these men. And is using them to destroy the body of Christ. How did all of this happen? I said this is a warning to the churches. It's a warning to believers. How did this happen? How did this take place? Understand today that the enemy is very cunning. And there's something that is happening within churches. There's something that is happening in the body of Christ. And it's something called competition. Competition within the body of Christ. Who can cause their local church to grow and get big? Who can cause their local church to grow and get big? So churches have meetings and declare that they're going to have crusades and conventions. No, it's not like nothing is wrong with having crusade, convention, or having outreach ministry. But because there's a competition and the enemy is crafty and cunning, he's using even what is meant to be good. He's using it because he has entered and because he's a deceiver. He's tricking. And because of the competition in the church, people don't understand. So they have these big meetings and they declare that we want to have crusades and convention and we are going to go on the street and we are going to target young men. We are going to target young men. And we're going to baptize young men. And at the end, when the meeting is finished and they go out and they have the crusade, it's a competition to come back and report when it's the next annual meeting, annual general meeting within the church or within the organization or board meeting. They have these meetings and they go and they report that, listen, I have had a crusade or a convention. And during this, many young men got baptized. I have baptized 200 young men. And another church come and say, I have baptized 300 young men. And the list goes on. And it's a competition. So it's not about truly a man's soul. So the church is blind. And because there's competition, the focus is on just baptizing to go back to these meetings to declare that we have victory. And we baptize a lot of young men. And because this is known, because this is known, and because of how cunning the enemy is, he has sent a lot of young men, influx of young men within the churches, within these organizations, and has entered pretending to be saved, but they are tricking the system. The church don't realize that they are being deceived. The church don't realize that they are being tricked. The church don't realize, but these young men have motive. they enter the church under disguise, scamming left, right, and center. They enter the church using the church as cover for their way of life, because they know that the government do not trouble churches per se, because church comes under non-profit. Do you understand how dangerous this is? That these men, they don't care about the Creator. They don't care about the church. They care about their lifestyle. They care about what they can profit out of what they are doing. So they don't care about entering the church as long as they can cover up what they are doing. And this is happening. This is taking place in the church without the church being aware of it, because the church has become blind and because the church is gullible. I give a warning in the spirit. There's a warning. There's a warning. There's a warning to the church. Open your eyes, church. Open your eyes. Become spiritually connected. Seek spiritual insight. Seek the Creator for spiritual insight so that you can see what is taking place. Scammers have entered the church under pretense, pretending, acting and behaving. Today, know that in your own church and in your own congregation where you are, understand that there are some young men there, some people that hold key position, some men and women that are on mic preaching and teaching. They are just in the church to scam. They are there. Come on, open your eyes. Open your eyes. Open your eyes. Open your eyes. Deception is real. And deception has entered the church. They look real. They sound real. They talk real. They behave real. But in fact, they are only in the church using it as cover. Open your eyes. Open your eyes. Deception has entered the church. Scammers are in the church and they are taking over. Open your eyes. This is a warning. This is a warning. Let him that have an ear to hear what the Spirit is saying to the churches today.